It's been quite some time since I was active. It was mostly because of Saints Row. In fact, it's been 5 months since I was actually active on the channel. This game ruined me. It's the worst game I've ever played, with its cringe writing.
Big statement. That yacht's guarded AF.
Dude, did you just say AF?
Yeah, it's an abbreviation.
First, we fucking swear all the time. Second, it's only an abbreviation when you text. AF. As fuck. Same number of syllables, dumbass.
Okay, fine. This is gonna be an epic statement because that yacht is guarded as fuck.
Who sat there and thought, oh yeah, this is fucking funny? It's not funny. It's actually fucking awful. I don't think I laughed at it once. I think I was cringing. And I'll show you another example of this game trying to be funny, but ending up being fucking cringe.
Fall in line. Balls. Goat balls. Cow balls. Goddamn cow balls and the pizzle stick between them. Horse balls. Big, giant, sweaty horse balls. Big, giant, sweaty, dangling horse testes just swinging in the goddamn breeze, knocking back and forth like a pair of motherfucking clappers in a giant horse flesh crotch bell.
Who sat there at Volition and thought, that is fucking funny? Because it's not. And it got me thinking, what if I brought a Saints Row game? What if I was creative director of Volition and they told me, oh yeah, think of a new Saints Row game to revive the franchise after being forgotten for almost a decade. And after some careful thinking, it brought me a brilliant idea. So this is my pitch for the new Saints Row. So as you see here, I've made a diagram of the original timeline to better help show where my ideal game takes place. So I've always liked the idea of an inspiration of Modern Warfare, or the new Modern Warfare games where they did a soft reboot, where it's in a completely different universe, but it still has the same characters from the OG games. But instead in this one, my game will take place directly after Saints Row 2, like maybe a few years after, and let me explain why. The Saints Row 2 ending is perfect because it leaves the character of the boss at a very high note compared to the first game, where he's finally won and taken out all the gangs and he hasn't been betrayed, and he's finally found lieutenants that he can trust. With this beginning of this new game, we still have Gat, Pierce and Shaundi as lieutenants, and I do really like them. I think they're my favourite lieutenants, especially Gat, obviously, because he's an OG. There's so much character development we could do for each of these characters. So instead of the Saints being celebrities like they were in Saints Row 3, they instead like a mafia, an empire, like the Vikings are in Saints Row 1, and it also is good for foreshadowing for when Junior says,
"Don't you get it? The Saints didn't solve a goddamn thing. Drugs were still being pushed. Innocent people were still getting killed. All we did was turn into vice kings that wore purple."
Jesus Christ, you sound like a pussy.
I sound like someone who's not a sociopath.
You want to be the killer with a conscience? Fine. Drop your flags and write a book like King, but you never should have came after me.
You telling me, if I would have asked you to walk away, you would have said yes?
Fuck no, this is my city.
Jesus, you haven't learned a goddamn thing.
Wrong. I've learned that being in charge is better than being a bitch who keeps his mouth shut and does what he's told. Your time's over, old man.
What's happened to you?
I woke up.
You owe me, player. If it wasn't for me, you would have died on that street corner.
If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been in a goddamn coma.
But I guess that makes us even.
Not really.
that whole scene where the boss kills Julius is a great epilogue for the actual Saints Row 1 and 2 culmination of those two games' storylines where the boss gets revenge. But it's obviously still one more person who he didn't kill, and that was Dex, who escapes in corporate warfare, I think, or it's DLC. And the boss is proper arrogant in that cutscene where he doesn't want to be a bitch. He goes from a lieutenant of the Saints becoming the leader of the Saints, and he's power driven, which could in my Saints Row game would be his ultimate downfall when he goes after Dex and ends up him losing everything. I'll explain that why. And the boss in this new game, because he's so driven with power, there's because of one person he hasn't killed, and that's Dex. And we'll get to the character of Dex in a second. And when Junior says we just become the Vice Kings in purple, that's what I mean by great foreshadowing, because the Saints are no longer trying to be the people like the Robin Hood sort of crew. They are now corporate. That they just want power and money, and this is what my game will show. In my story, Dex he's like a Dane Vogel or an Alderman Hughes. He's the final person that you will face in my game, because basically he will be like behind the scenes. So when the boss is like fully control Stillwater, and as you've seen in the end of one of the DLCs for Saints Row 2, Dex leaves and he can go to a brand new city, which I think if I make a part 2 I'll go into further detail of how I'd want the city, but this is mostly story. This is a story driven video, so like the boss is on a mission because something happens that leads him to go to this new city which Dex inhabits, because he gets a call from Dex telling, as like an inside tip, because Dex is like kind of manipulative. He's being nice to the boss because he knows the boss is after him, so he's made this whole plan to try and take out the boss and take Stillwater back from the Saints. So he's sort of a sly, cunning guy, but at the end, does the boss win? Well, in my story, I feel like it'll all come crashing down and maybe lead to the end of the boss and Dex. In my pitch, the game takes place 5 years after the events of Saints Row 2. The Saints are more powerful than ever, becoming an empire that everyone fears and wouldn't dare to cross, even the police. The Saints have the police in their pocket due to all the money they have been feeding their police. There have been gangs that have tried to take back Stillwater, but the Saints are too powerful that it's almost impossible for a power dynamic. This is all good until the main events of the game take place. The boss's call to action is when one of his lieutenants, Pierce, has been missing for quite some time. The boss is tipped off that Pierce has been taken and is in a completely new city. The reason for why we need a new city, because the first 2 Saints Row games were based in Stillwater and it would just become repetitive and boring if you kept rehashing it. So once the boss enters this city, it's a mess. You had 3 major gangs causing chaos, but it's nothing that the Saints can handle. The boss takes Gat with him, of course, because he's a badass. And a new character that I thought of named Diego takes inspiration from Carlos, and it could be used for the boss's like plotline now. He can't let someone die again like as brutal as Carlos. Anyway, they all go to try and save Pierce while Shawnee takes care of Stillwater and other lieutenants as well. Maybe they're new characters, I'm not sure. I'm not going into that much detail. So the boss, Gat and Diego are led to Dex, who begs for their help as he is a part of a task force that is trying to stop these gangs. The boss refuses, but Dex promises that he can help find Pierce if he helps. The boss has no other choice and agrees to help Dex. After clearing out all these gangs, the boss meets up with Dex in his office to ask for Pierce back, like an old like sort of fitness building. Anyway, Dex stays by his word, and 3 men bring Pierce into the room. The boss rushes over to Pierce until he's shot in the leg by Diego. Diego was an undercover agent the entire time, and Gat is also knocked out by Diego. He was an undercover agent for Dex, and this was all just a secret plan for revenge against the boss for letting Lynn, Julius Vogel, and many more die that Dex saw as family. Whilst the boss was stopping these gangs, Dex was taking back Stillwater as he knew the boss and Gat wouldn't be there to stop him, so he had a big advantage. Dex then puts a gun to Pierce's head and kills him, making it even more of a reason why we should hate him. The boss screams in anger, looks at Dex, and says he's going to kill him. He vows to kill him, I mean. The boss is knocked out and wakes up in the cell. The boss obviously breaks out, saves Gat, and they head back to Stillwater to save everyone. To save everyone. And once they get to Stillwater, everything's gone, destroyed or taken over by Dex. They find Shawnee, who has been beat up, but she can still carry on. She'll still survive. And at this moment, the Saints are no more. The boss gets ready for battle with his cool Saints Row 2 screenshot. Him and Gat and Shawnee, they team up and they kill. Well, the boss gets a final blow on Dex, ending this long saga once for all, and end this whole sort of like storyline for Saints Row, this sort of era of Saints Row, the rightful ending which Saints Row 3 should have been. And we could do either ways for this ending. Either the boss, dies heroically, killing Dex, and Gat becomes the new leader of the Saints, where we play one more spin-off game, like a little epilogue series, as a lieutenant working under Gat, as he's the rightful heir to the throne of the Saints. Or we could do like loads of spin-offs, like Saints Row Origins, the origin of the Third Street Saints in the 70s, playing as a lieutenant for Julius Little and Ben Kin. There's many things we could do, and that's this game. Is like one of the newest Saints Row games, and one of the first we get in ages since the reboot, which was a failure. And if this game is a success, then people will want more. And why not give them more by making loads of spin-offs, like based in the universe that people like would want to know, like the lore, expand the lore even more. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you like my pitch for Saints Row, and I hope you like how I would like I hope you agree with my opinions on how Saints Row should go. And before the video ends, I've got one more pitch for you. This pitch is from AJ Third Street, who are special guests in today's episode. I'm so grateful he's agreed to be in this video. All of you will know him as one of the biggest content creators currently in the Saints Row community, and I can already tell this pitch is going to be brilliant because he has a great insight on the actual game and the franchise as a whole. And yeah, let's leave it for AJ.
Hey everyone, AJ here. I think my ideal Saints Row would be that sort of Saints Row 2 and 3 blend, but done better. I think a lot of people think it's okay to just have a serious story, but I don't think that's really the main problem with Saints Row. It's definitely a problem, but I think it's also the lack of quality we see in the games, and I'm not just talking polish, but I'm just talking general depth. I think the Reboot story would have been infinitely better if it just explained its plot points and gave the characters time to develop, opposed to just throwing it all in our face and giving us 25 missions. So I'd want a longer game that really takes time to tell its story. I don't want this story fast-tracked just so we have some short fun. That was definitely one of my biggest issues with the reboot. And of course, when it does come to tone, I would love again to see something similar to 2, but it's never been the tone that's turned me away from Saints Row. It's typically the way they execute it. A lot of the time, whatever story they're trying to tell can come off as quite half-assed, and that's always been my biggest problem. I think we saw it in Agents of Mayhem, and then we definitely saw it in the reboot. I don't hate the reboot for what it did, I hate the reboot mainly for what it didn't do. And what it didn't do was tell us exactly what was going on throughout the story, make it easy to understand, and make it make sense. There were just blatant plot holes that made zero sense, and it just seemed so unbelievably rushed. So I'd like to see a Saints Row game that was able to really explain itself, really put itself forward, and kind of let us know what it's aiming to be. I really think this next game has to really tell us its identity, and just spend more time being what it wants. I don't want to see a game fast-tracked, I don't want a really small mission list, I want a game where I learn about the characters, I learn about the enemy gangs. I want a classic Saints Row. And of course, I would love the tone to come back from, 1 or 2, but even if they stick with this newer style of tone, they have to start doing things right. It's great having a fun game, but it also has to be a good game, and those things aren't one without the other. You need both, you really do, and I think the reboot can be fun at times, but it's never a good game, and that's the biggest problem. So, I'm not necessarily asking for a drastic change, but I'd like to see a nice map, less glitches, and a story that was fully fleshed out.
So that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Sorry if my speech or like my talking in general just sounds a bit off. I've got braces in midway through recording this video. So if I sound a bit off, yeah, it's because like braces in it, you know what they're like if you had them. And I'd just like to thank once again AJ Third Street for being in this video. I love his content and he's a great guy. So please check him out, and link for his channel will be in the description below. And if you would like to see a part 2 to this like sort of series, well not a series but like this video, and see like how I would implement like gameplay and the map and activities, then like the video and share with friends. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.